Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Malts and Meeples. I am Petter, I run Malts and Meeples as well as nerdologist.com. If you enjoy the content, please consider giving a subscribe to this channel, follow on Twitch, subscribe on YouTube, thumbs up on the video. If you have questions, feel free to ask away in chat. But let's quickly talk about and look at the game that we're playing today. So, if you're not familiar with the Dresden Files are a urban fantasy series by Jim Butcher. Harry Dresden, the main character, is a wizard who, unfortunately for him, keeps on having to save the world. This game is based on that series, and we are playing through, and there's a reason I made my picture larger, Stormfront. So this is the first of the books. And so this card here is just a divider, but it also tells you the different cards that it has in it and what the different types of cards are. So let's get a close-up on this here. So you can see we have 4 and 4 for foes and cases, and then we have maybe too much reflection. You can do this, maybe. And closer. Nope. 2 and 2 for obstacles and advantages. So in this game, it is a cooperative card game, but almost a deck builder of sorts. Not really a deck builder, but a deck-based game where every character has their own deck. So of course we are playing with the main character, Harry Dresden. And since we are playing through the first book, and I don't want to really add in any spoilers if you haven't read the book series, this will have spoilers. Each of these cards pertains to something in the book, and so you'll get an idea of the story, but I am intentionally going with only characters that are mentioned in the first book or play a part in the first book. So we have Karen Murphy, detective, and Susan Rodriguez, a reporter. So that's what creates our team. Then we are going to be spending these fate points. These give us basically those are our action points available to us. We spend them based off of what it says on the card. So, for example, this is one of Harry's cards. You can see that blue circle there with 3 fate points cost. Then below that we have how many clues it gives. So that gives 2 clues. And then the range. So the reason I picked this card is that the range in fact is variable. So the range is 3 plus or minus 1. So if you roll one of these fate dice. These are actually the dice for the Fate RPG. Has 2 pluses, 2 minuses, and 2 blanks. So you roll that, and if you get a plus, you can go up to range 4. If you get a minus, you can go as far as range 2, but you have to declare which one you're going for. And that means that it would add clue tokens to any of these green cases out here. These cases are also interconnected. So, for example, right here we have a speed potion where active player draws a card and immediately takes another turn, which moves this monster to the furthest range, but this monster has on it that it can't take hits until the case Who is the Shadow Man is solved. Who's the Shadow Man with this C right here, is connected to Victor is missing. And so when you solve Victor is missing, you can put 3 clues on who's the Shadow Man. However, we have our range. So like you could see, that variable range meant that we could only go out to range, potentially range 4. And that card, oof, that was noisy. So I guess at this point in time, probably should talk about what I'm drinking today. We have Surly Furious IPA, local to Minnesota here. It's a decent IPA. Feels good. It's not a super warm day, but it's been rainy, so we haven't been able to open up windows, cool off the house at all. So the house is fairly warm today. And a couple other things to explain. So I was explaining how we would use these action points or fate points. And so say I played that case 1, I put 3 down here. You can see that we're burning through these fate points fairly quickly. We're down to 5 left. If I were to do that, how do we get them back? Or how do we get more fate points? It isn't like at the end of every turn 1 fate point or something is refreshed. It actually has to do with, and I'm pretty sure the reason we get weird light stuff is the glare off of my forehead. You have to discard a card. So if I discarded that case card, this one again for a refresher, for 3, that has a 3 fate point cost, we get back 3 fate points. So I mean, that's something you have to do at some point in time, but it's not all bad, because each character has, maybe you can read it, too much reflection, let's try up here, focus, it wants to focus at the farther distance. Yeah, it wants to focus at the farther distance. But basically, it allows you to discard, when you discard a fate point, Harry has the ability to move any of these obstacles or advantages further that way. Forward or backward, I guess. But in the case of obstacles, there's something that is negative for you. In the case of advantages, it's something that's helpful for you, so you're trying to get those fairly quickly. Murphy has the ability to add clues to the cases at the farthest range, and Susan Rodriguez adds cases, or clues to cases at the shortest range. So kind of do the opposite of each other. But I'm just going to jump into playing here at this point in time. You'll get to see how this works, how I get more fate points back, stuff like that. But we'll start with, well, you always start with Harry. Or Harry, somebody has to play Harry in it, and we always prefer to start with Harry just because it's more fun that way. Thematic. So, let's see. I don't have any great attack cards. I don't have anything that's going to deal with an obstacle. Don't have anything that's going to help with an advantage. So I'm actually going to discard this card. This discard pile gets us back 1 fate point. I also then can move this 1 closer. And so I'll talk about what the case name or whatever it is that I'm working on, and I can kind of explain some of the story as we go. So in the first book, Harry isn't a super important wizard at that point in time. He is just in Chicago running a private detective agency and making ends meet generally. But he gets called into a weird case that he thinks is just a missing parent, but turns out to be tied into a toad demon. This guy here. During this time, he also starts to suspect that Gentleman Johnny Marcone might be... Well, he knows he's a bad guy, but he thinks at the start that he might be involved somehow, and he knows that one of his men was killed. So we're now on to Murphy's turn, so each character goes one at a time. Murphy is Harry's contact within the police department, who gets him called in on cases when there's something weird and supernatural going on, which this ritual double murder in the book kicks everything off. Well, let's see. I really want to get rid of some of those obstacle cards, so we're going to use Murph's motorcycle at range 3, so I can take out this one. But now I have to roll 2 dice to see how much this is going to cost me. I'll roll them up here. Blanks. Because we have this obstacle in play, one of them becomes a negative for us. And so it's going to cost 4. We've played it before where the negative on a cost actually reduces the cost, but I think it's a better way to put it as it's a negative for the players. Positive for the players reduces cost, increases range, does the benefit for the players. Negative reduces range, increases cost. So then this one goes up here, just book discard pile, nothing special about it. And I guess at this point in time I should quickly talk about how we win. So we win when there are more cases solved than there are foes left on the board. So in this setup we have 4 cases and 4 foes. We need to solve 3 cases, or say we solve 2 cases. We have to have killed 3 foes. If we solve 3 cases, we have to have killed... If we solve 2 cases, we have to kill 3 foes. If we solve 3 cases, we have to kill 2 foes. Ties always go to the foes. So then we have Susan here. I can't get either the obstacle or the advantage, that or that. So it's probably worth it to start punching someone. And I'm going to do the pen is mightier. So some of these cards have special abilities. So start by spending 3, and then we get to add 2 hits to someone at range up to range 3. I want to do it against Marcone's goon because that adds 2 to is Marcone involved. It also says if the attack does not defeat the target foe, add 2 with a variability of 1 clues to any one case. So 3 clues to any one case. I'm actually going to start loading up this case because we need to solve this case to be able to attack him. Now Harry, back to him, doesn't actually have anything that's all that useful for us to do right now. So I'm going to discard this card that would remove an obstacle to gain back 1 fate point, but mainly to move this closer. Because now it's within range 3. That's fairly common that we can hit at range 3, but Unfortunately, Murphy cannot. So we're going to use her motorbike here. Or her badge, I should say. The images for the overcome are always the same. The images for the cases are always the same, or clues are always the same. The images for the attacks are the same on the cards. The images for the advantages are the same on the card for each character. However, each character has unique artwork. So we get 1 fate point back, and Murphy places a clue on the farthest case. So you can see we're starting to kind of spread some of this out, and that's because each of these abilities, or each of these characters, I should say, has a special one-time ability. Harry has the ability to add 4 hits, 1 to 4 hits on a foe, and when he does that, it has to be enough to kill that foe, so ideally we would get 1 more on Marconi's goons, and then Harry can just straight up kill them with his blasting rod. So we have 4, and the reason I wanted to make sure we had 4 is because Susan Rodriguez has a press pass that has range 3, costs 4, so we have the cost. We place that there, and then I get to roll 1 die to see, that was cocked, how many fate points we get back. We get back 2. So I'll give us back 2 fate points. And then we go. So one thing that you don't do in this game is we start out with a hand of 7 cards. For 3 players it's 7, for 4 players I believe it's 6. It always keeps you in that around 20. Less than 25, I think 18 to 25, 24 cards, something like that. Let's see, yeah, I think 18 to 24. And that's how many cards you have throughout the whole game. Now, some of the characters have powers or abilities that allow you to draw a card. Some of the advantages allow you to draw a card. But let's see. So we have 2 fate points. And I have nothing useful. So we're going to discard this one of Harry's. That's quite good. Costs 4, infinite range, and you add 2 clues to cases in each row. However, we had a perfect divide of 2 and 2, so it's less advantageous for us here, since at most we're ever hitting 2 cases. That also sets us up to be able to then move this one closer, and I can either stick with this like it is and Harry can deal with it, or we can have Murph risk it. But I don't think I'm going to have Murph risk it. I think there's other stuff that's useful for her to do. So, what I'm going to do is have her use her, oh man, tough options here. I'm going to have her use her street sense. Actually, I'm going to have her discard her street sense. It's a little bit odd. It only gives us, well, it gives us 3 more clues, or of those tokens, and then since these are equidistant away, I can put a clue on one of them. I'm actually going to put it on here. The reason is Murphy has an ability to get us fate points equal to the number of foes and cases that have hits and clues on them respectively. So that's it's going to be her turn. Then we're going to spend 2 for a holy water attack from Susan. So at range 1, add 2 hits to a... Because now that gets us much closer to... Well, Harry can take care of that with a blasting rod. He won't do it this turn because I want to use Refletum. So I roll, plus that's the good advantage for us, what I've been ruling as, so that takes that cost down to 1. And now, we now move him to the furthest range. He's already there. Harry gets to draw another card, and immediately takes another turn. This is the card I drew with Harry. It overcomes an obstacle. There are no more obstacles, so I'm going to immediately discard that to gain back 3 points. This is Harry's turn. And this also moves Max Beer closer, because we're still trying to get that last one in range so we can take it off of the board. I guess I forgot to say what ends the game. So what can end the game is either we deal with all these cases or we get into what's called the showdown. In the showdown, you are rolling dice based off of this card up here, and it varies from book to book. And you are trying to roll well enough. You can spend fate points to improve your rolls in order to be able to solve cases that have clues on them. So, Murph. Man, I want to solve that case to get the beer at max into closer range. But Murphy, who normally is a little bit better at solving cases, it's not great this time. I could most certainly kill Marcone's goons, but I can do that with Harry next turn. You know what, I'm not sure that we're going to be in a ton better position than this, so I'm going to use Murphy's special ability that will get us these remaining 4 points. The reason for doing that is it sets us up for the next turn. I'm actually going to use Susan's stunt, is what they call it, as well, to allow somebody to draw a card. It will be her, and I got the card that I wanted. This allows her to grab that last advantage off the board. So let's roll a die. Advantageous for us, yes. So it costs us 2, and she gets to go again because she drew the card. That's not always the case, as we'll see with beers at Max. So Mac is a bartender who basically runs a bar for supernatural types. And so the active player draws 1 card and then distributes 2 card draws among the other players. So Susan can draw a card, and she can have Harry draw 2 cards, but we're going to have both the other characters draw a card each. We're actually getting through a ton of cards this time. Sometimes, this first scenario allows you to draw a lot of cards. There are some of them where you don't, so you're playing with a much more limited resource, since if you don't have cards like that, or like Susan's ability that give you card draws, you're not drawing anymore into the player's hands, and the characters players start with 7 cards. So that kind of limits the number of times you can go around. Harry is going to use his blasting rod, dealing the final 3 damage. To that, a bit more than needed, but now we also get to place 2 clues on is Marconi involved. When solved, the active player must discard an attack card. So you can see how some things cause you to lose cards as well. So Harry went. Murph is going to discard this card for 1, just because I don't love her setup currently, and we'll place that there. Oh, excuse me. Victor is missing. That then takes us to Susan. Susan is going to spend 5 points to be able to add 5 clue tokens to one of these. And we're going to add it here. Even though we could solve this one, I don't want to discard an attack card quite yet. And that cost 5 fate points. Then Harry is going to go. And just make sure I keep enough for what I need. We're going to spend 3 fate points. And this is a variable range. So at range 3, so here I'm going to be adding 2 clues. Sorry, I just had that kind of hanging nowhere. 2 clues to this one back here. The reason for that is this card, Murphy's. Up to range 3, but we're not going to use it for range 3. We're going to use it for range 1. Costs 4 fate points. Place 2 clues here, which is going to solve this case. We are now able to deal damage to Kalshazak, Toad Demon. But more importantly, at the bottom here, if I use this to solve a case, I can draw a card. So Murphy, who had drawn 1 less card than everybody else, now gets an additional card to play with. Or something like that. Numbers seem about right anyways. Sorry, straightening stuff up here. All of this slides forward. And now it is Susan's turn. She's going to discard a card, only getting us back 1 fate point, but allows us to add an additional clue here. And here's the annoying part. I have Harry up next. I'm going to discard a card for 4 fate points, but Harry is best when you discard with him early, because he moves obstacles and advantages. We're out of obstacles and advantages, but we've set Murph up now to potentially do something, but I'm not going to. I'm going to discard this card for a single fate point. That allows me to place another clue on here. So you can see right now I'm kind of making that push towards clues. And the reason for that is I want to use Susan's Expose card, which would put another, it costs 5, which is unfortunate because that means Harry's going to be discarding for fate points again. But with that, I can solve this. Susan has to discard an attack card, which is unfortunate. Doesn't get the points for it, but she now gets to add three hits to any one foe. And this is a pretty good one to add it to. Susan's down to 1 card, Harry's at 2, and Murph's at 3. So we can go into the showdown whenever we want. And the reason for being able to go into the showdown whenever we want is that if a player can't do anything on their turn, they spend 1 fate point. So there will be points in time where you want to continue playing cards from other characters, but if you're not getting enough fate points to counteract that fate point loss, it's better to just go straight into the showdown. Hopefully that won't have to be the case. Oof, I don't know that we can. I'm going to discard Fuego for Harry. It's a good one. Can deal up to 5 damage, gets us 5 fate points. But if Murph's lucky, we can kill off the monster in front there, which would be huge. That spends 5 fate points. We have to roll 2 fate dice. So, net 0, we're doing 4 damage. So, we'll go up to 7. So close. There's only 1 fate point. Susan only has 1 card, so we'll discard that to get 4 fate points back. Now, Harry has 1 card left as well. Soul Gaze, it gives you a ton of clues. However, it has a range of 1, and everything's outside of range 1, so we'll use that to get 5 fate points back. We have Susan, or not Susan, we have Murph ready. Oh, and I forgot, when I discarded with Susan to get those, I can place clue token there. We're then going to play this card with Murph, which has a variable cost, so that's a 5 cost, to deal 4 hits to anyone. I'm going to deal it here, simply because that kills somebody else. So right now, all we have to do is solve this case, and we win. And this is going to be a tricky situation because Susan has no cards, must spend 1, must spend 1. Now we have on here 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Of course, only 6 clues. This is the card I have left. We need 3 clues. If we solve that case, we win. We have nothing that can defeat. I'm going to discard this card for the points, simply because I had to spend 2 to get back to Murph's turn. Hopefully we get way more than that back. Yep, so we're getting positive for us, so 5 of those back. Nobody has any cards left. Nobody has any abilities left. We're headed into the showdown. So, with the showdown, we are in a burning house, and so at the end of the first book, Harry is in a burning house after tracking down Victor and the cult that he has created, and he is fighting against the Toad Monster. However, we're not doing that. We get to fight foes or solve cases. So, I can't quite see that. But basically, we can spend fate to improve our chances. We only have 1 shot at one of these, because you have to have tokens on this. So theoretically, the best I can roll and get is 9. So there's no way we can reach that 11. However, the best I can get is 9. We start out with 3 successes, and we're rolling handful of dice, 6 dice. This is going to determine our fate. We need to get 1, which means we can't have a -3. And the dice hate me today. That is a -4. So that is 0 clues for that case. So we lose because we've solved 2 cases, but there are still 2 monsters in play. And we had 1 card left for every character. That was really close. I don't think there was anything I missed with that. I'm trying to think. When Susan discarded her last card, we gave it to that. Yeah, that was unfortunate finish. And wait, let's see. I discarded for Murph, so this is a long shot. Like I said, we can spend 4 fate points. We get 3 successes, and we're rolling 6 dice. You saw how I rolled that time. I would have to get every single one of these dice as a plus, but if I do that, we have 6 positive. And the reason I put 1 on here is I had forgotten I discarded my last card for fate points with Murph instead of rolling to try and get it. To try and decrease the fate cost. So I need 6 pluses. I think the best I've ever seen rolled on 6 dice is 1 plus. Like, just overall, after totaling up those dice. Like I said, 1 plus. So, we would add an additional 4 to this case. However, then we run out and we lose. This is a very tough cooperative game. Most of the time, it comes down to a roll at the end. It was that roll I had to complete that case, which would have won it for us, is one of the worst rolls I have seen. Also, just with how the cards were set up on the board, sometimes you have a more advantageous or less advantageous setup. The setup I had here was what I would consider a less advantageous setup in the randomized cards, in that it was obstacle, obstacle, advantage, advantage. Can't ever have an obstacle or advantage in row 6 just because it's too hard to reach them. But if you have them set up here, that's a great advantage. Or, for example, the Who's the Shadow Man is aided by Victor is Missing. So if Victor is Missing is up towards the front, plus, say, Marcone's Goons, then you're able to aid cases further down the line. So it was just not necessarily an ideal setup that happens in this game. That is some of the fun of the game, in my opinion. And it's very thematic to the book. I mean, we're dealing with the protagonist and I forget how many book series it is now. Let's do a quick count. I don't know that this has quite all of them. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. No, it has all of them. There are 15 books in the series. So, I mean, obviously Harry isn't getting murdered in every book and coming back. That would be an interesting series. So obviously for the series he wins whatever that cost might be to him in the books, but it's a fun game, and I'm going to be back again probably next week to play this again, or we're about at 40 minutes, so I think that's probably a good amount of time for this. But I'm going to be back again. We'll play through Stormfront again once we beat Stormfront. And next time I might play a couple times, since I don't have to explain the rules and I can just kind of hop into it. We can then hop into the next book, Full Moon, and so on and so forth. There's stuff for each one of the books. We have a ton of characters that we can play with. I will continue doing what I've done here, which is introduce characters into who I'm playing only when they're introduced into books, and with that also introduce them, ideally trying to keep the same group of characters, or the correct group of characters for the books, in playing in the book setup. So Murphy, Harry, and Susan are all in Stormfront and big players in that. Next book, I will continue picking the players from that book, and sometimes that leads to less than optimal combinations, because, for example, Full Moon, or I should say Stormfront, had 4 cases and 4 bad guys, foes. Come on, focus, please. Literally, you can see nothing but this. Nothing wants to focus today. Sorry about that. It is 5 and 5, or 5 and 3. So, still have 2 obstacles, still have 2 advantages. We have 5 foes and 3 cases. So that one's going to be more attack heavy. And that's kind of how it can set up so it matches the feel of the books better. And then it uses this linking setup to link kind of the story and flow to the books. So yeah, you can solve some of the extraneous cases, or like beat the Shadow Man before you know who the Shadow Man is, but there are certain parts of the cases that will hold themselves together better. But with that, that's what I have for you today. Thank you so much for joining me. If you are enjoying this, please give us a follow on Twitch, or if you're watching this later on YouTube, please consider subscribing to YouTube, the Malts and Meeples YouTube channel, and giving the video a thumbs up. That will help more people find our videos. And hopefully more people can see how you can play some of these games solo. And I apologize for my voice. I have just gotten a cold, so that's a ton of fun, but I'm sure the beer will help. So, thumbs up.